What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday. Tyler, you're seriously not going to sing?
Sorry.
You sang today in your story.
Oh, sorry. I missed that. I was reading. I have text messages coming, or messages
We're doing
coming in.
an intro to our podcast.
I didn't realize that. Not just general messages. They're podcast messages.
Oh.
I'm not just checking out the DMs. All right. Let's try this again.
No, we're rolling with it.
Monday.
John, who do we have on for a guest this week?
Studio McGee.
Sid and Shea join us.
And if you don't know who they are, you're living underneath a stone.
A rock.
Yeah.
Maybe even a rock.
Yeah, a rock.
A boulder.
Stone's kind of small.
Yeah. Maybe a boulder.
It's like it'd be really cold. But she drops I like the fact that she was like, the secret is...
Yes.
And she pauses, looks at Sid for approval. We're all like on the edge of our seat. And then she tells it.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They're awesome.
We're so good at these intros.
It's cold out.
Is it too cold to install siding properly? Yes, that's true with most products, not with Duration. Because end cuts and rips of Duration don't need to be primed, painted, or otherwise sealed, you can install their siding right through the winter months, no problem. No need to worry about any clearance issues from grade, roof, patios, or even other boards. And to learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website, durationmillwork.com. Well, appreciate you guys being on today. As expected, I'm sure we have a lot of questions, but the one I want to just get right to it. I want to know about how you guys started the company, and did you expect it to grow so quickly and so big so quickly?
Well, how it started, I feel like, is a very long story. But I started Shea McGee Design, which was just me, and that was kind of a side project, me fumbling my way through learning how to be an interior designer. And I used our first home that was a foreclosure that we had gotten our hands on in Orange County and started fixing that up. And that was really what put me on the map as a designer in the Instagram world, because I was one of the first people to use Instagram as a tool to market my business. And that from there really started getting clients, and started with, one room or just styling projects, consulting, and that turned into full rooms and then homes. And during this time, Sid was working with family and decided he didn't want to work with family anymore. Are you? Oh, I was going to blame that on you. That was me. I'm so sorry.
Are you serious?
So, why is she calling us right now?
To make sure we're on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I should probably text her because I was.
Well, we're on. Sorry, hope you can edit that out.
So tell him I was working with family again.
So Sid was working with family and decided he didn't want to work with family anymore. And I was, when did you quit, right?
Working with family's terrible, right?
Yeah, and he was like,
I mean,
I'm never going to work with family
but
again.
Working with my family was horrible, like the worst thing ever. I'd rather be unemployed.
Yeah.
So would he, and then he left his job, and we didn't know what we were. I think I had just had Ren. I had our first baby, and of course thought I was going to take a little break, and then he came home and was like, I quit. And so I just had to figure out how to hold us over. And Sid had been so patient with me those previous years. I had graduated from college, and within like 2 years decided I didn't want to use my degree in communications. I wanted to design. Was patient with me while I changed jobs and went to school and tried to make my way. And so I figured, well, now we're gonna take turns. It's his turn to find out what he wants to do with his life. And it was not apparent to either of us that we should work together at the very beginning of that journey. And then a few months in, I was taking on every design project I possibly could, and realizing that most of my time was spent doing the operational components of the business, and then the design happened really late into the night. And then one day I was like being so sassy with him. I was like, if you're not going to do anything, you might as well just like help me with, sending some purchase orders or something. And
It's a great conversation.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a conversation. It just felt like it was being told something.
Were you milking it at this point though? Like taking advantage of the sugar mama type thing?
Kind of. I was really trying to, maybe, but
Should we ask her?
unwillingly. I was trying to really figure out like my kind of next business venture and doing stuff and determining what I hated and trying to kind of hone in on what I was doing. I had started a business similar to like what I was doing previously with family, and then realized like, yeah, maybe I got tired of working with family as well as working in that industry. And so I'm not going to do that anymore. Wish I'd come to that realization before leaving my job with the 3-month-old baby and kind of deciding what we're going to do to pay the bills. But then, it was fun. We live in Southern California. There would be, days to go surf where I had to figure out what I was going to do. It was part of that journey of discovering what business. And then she said, hey, you want to help me out operationally. And that, that kind of helped me realize that like in working with family and what I was doing at this digital marketing agency, I really had done a lot of operational stuff, and that felt really comfortable and really at home for me, as well as being appreciative of the design stuff that Shea was doing. It felt like, okay, that's somewhere I can just kind of easily settle into and take that. So she helped me to see that. Sometimes
he's saying helped, but like I basically begged him every day for months and months to come on board with me officially, and he was not interested. And as we continued to wait for this like aha moment, I think Sid had to realize that we had this opportunity like right in front of us. Like I had a talent and a skill, and he had the exact opposite skill set, which was a really great balance. And at a certain point, he finally said, let's do this, but it can't be Shea McGee Designs.
It had to be, it was conditional upon a more neutral, more partnership representative name.
So we
Good for
changed
you.
the name, and we decided that Sid and I are, I don't know, I feel like we kind of are like all in or all out. And when we decided to go in, we realized that with the high expenses that we had in Orange County, that it was going to take a longer time to achieve our goals there, just to like meet the bare minimum overhead. So we decided to sell our home, and the timing of that was really worked in our favor because the market had started to turn since we had purchased this foreclosure, and I had fixed it up. And so we were able to sell it, take the profits from that, and then used that to live off of and move to a less expensive place to start our business. So we moved to Utah, and then that was the two of us. We hired an assistant. We interviewed one person. Mm-hmm. We interviewed one person, and then
don't tell them that.
From there. And I think at that point it was like there was a sense of survival, but we also had like lots of stars in our eyes of like all the things that we could do to change the industry. And we came to Utah and hit the ground running. Like we didn't say no to any projects and just took everything on that we could.
What did your business look like at this point? Were you fairly established when you made this move?
Yes, kinda. I think it's barely established compared to what it is today.
We had a name, we had a business license, we had how many followers?
And we had like 30. No, we had like 35,000 followers on Instagram, which in hindsight, like that gave us the confidence. Is like I can't believe that gave us the confidence, but Instagram also hadn't been around long enough for people to grow followings into the hundreds of thousands in the interior design industry. So right. At 35,000, we were still I was still one of the designers pretty much with the most amount of followers. And so I felt like, well, I am a known Instagrammer. Like, I think I'll be able to attract clients wherever we go. And so it was not really established. I mean, like we were still like, Sid was setting up all of the basic foundational
LLCs
pieces
and operational, just kind of some standard operating procedures. But I think we were established enough to feel confident, and also didn't know enough to feel discouraged. Like
that's a fine line.
Yeah.
And then in retrospect, you're like, yo, we were not ready for that at all. What the hell were we thinking?
Like the fact that my parents like very kindly offered for us to live in their basement if it didn't work out. And like,
thanks.
I can't believe that's all they said. Like, I think about that. And if my kids came to me with the little amount of experience that we had, you are nuts. What are you thinking? But they were supportive. They believed in us.
Do you think you attribute the social media or leveraging that to your communications background, or what?
Totally. Yeah. I think that I say I switched careers, but I didn't, because so much of communications and marketing has been woven into my role in the company. And I think that my understanding of identifying an audience and speaking to that audience has really, really helped us really understand and shape Instagram, our Instagram following as it is today.
And going back to what you said, Sid, is working together, that you guys were reluctant to do that, or kind of not seeing what was right in front of you. You know, why were you reluctant to work together? Was it the fear of working, family again, or something, husband-wife team?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly at that time it was really like, I was kind of stuck in a more traditional sense of like, I just wanted to have a business that worked, and Shea could just stay home and not have to worry about that side of things, and just really just kind of like be at home with the kids and do that. I think that was where I was at. I was worried, we always had a really good relationship, but I had seen that like, the mixing of good relationships and business, like that's stressful, man. Like there's a lot of stress that comes in business, no matter what, even with successful businesses, even with challenging businesses that are struggling. There's always going to be stress there. There's always going to be decisions. There's always going to be forks in the road that you have to go one way or another. There's going to be issues and complications kind of forever. You're kind of always just resolving issues in your business. So was that something I was ready to jump into with Shea? Like, I feel like I had a hesitancy there, thinking, hey, there's still a way for me to like figure something out. Like, you don't have to worry about it. But then it was just like too hard to deny when it was like, hey, why don't you just help me from an operational perspective? Because I'm feeling like I'm getting so much work right now that if you could focus on that, I could take on more design work and it could pay our bills and we could be good to go. So I think I just was like, okay, let's go for it, and we'll figure it out. And we have.
Did you ever think about that whole work-life balance? And as soon as you guys go together, then there is no work life. It's just all work, maybe?
I didn't think about it until it was too late.
Yeah, I think we didn't think about that until it was actually like we were in over our heads and we were like, oh, wow, we got to figure out how to set some boundaries here.
I mean, I think Shea said like we commit and go all in. So I think for a while we were just like, well, we didn't even have a life if we're not successful at business. And then just that inability to be satisfied with what we were doing was like always setting our targets higher and higher of like, we want to grow something. Okay, what do we want to grow? We want to grow a brand that's really well recognized nationally, potentially internationally. We want to have like a product component. We want to like do, at that time, we didn't really have any major projects. So it's like, we want to do some really cool homes in different places and have those opportunities. So that was like the focus at all the time. And then if it was like downtime, we were sitting in bed on our laptops talking about contracts because we just did a job and something sucked and we
needed to update the contract.
we need to like build provisions into our contracts because we're like, we don't want to get into that again, you know? Or
Well,
we would like
it's just usually you have to wait. Like if I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm freaking out about some contract, it's not like I can like nudge the person beside me and be like, you need to update this. Like you guys had that right there.
Totally. Classic I'm asleep move, her kicking me saying, are you asleep? Like, let's talk about this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm up now. Like, let's talk. You know? Like,
so you say you're basically gas on or gas off. It doesn't seem like you guys have really taken your foot off the gas yet. Have you been able to kind of gauge where you are, where you've come from, and really grasp what you're doing at this point, or is it just moving so fast?
I think that it's been moving very fast, and I think when you're in it, like numbers, like when I look at Instagram and I see like 2 million followers, like I guess it just at a certain point it's just like kind of numbers. And sometimes it's hard. I don't like to actually think about how many people do that many people like it really equates. It messes me up. I just want to keep being authentic and like true to ourselves. And so when I start thinking about that, the magnitude of how many people stream Netflix internationally is again, I don't like to think about it because I want to just keep doing what we're doing, and I don't want to change who we are because like I let the numbers get to me. I think that the book was like the only thing that like forced us to slow down and then think backward, because everything else until this point has been, what's next? What are we launching next? What new exciting thing are we doing? And the book forced us to kind of remember all these things that happened to us in these early days. And I think that was, I'm grateful for that opportunity to like think about that and how far we've come, because we're in a much better spot in our relationship and in our business than we were at the beginning, because it was just like, it's years of being just like trying to keep your head above water.
But it's funny, 'cause that was like a 5 years in forced like reflection, right?
Yeah.
Like, but most of the time we're just like, we got a lot more to do. So let's just stay focused and move forward.
Yeah, I feel like with kids and business, regardless of the scale of your business, it's just so hectic and it's so crazy. And there's not much that gets in the way of you slowing down. And I can't imagine having a business that exploded the way that yours did, that it's like, how many people are coming to you and they want this, or, somebody wants you on their podcast, where it's like, well, when do we actually get to slow down and enjoy what we built and what we have, just with how chaotic it could be?
Yeah, I think, truthfully, our home was like the first time we ever enjoyed anything from our business. When we sold our home and moved to Salt Lake, we naively thought that we would be able to take out a loan and like buy a really inexpensive fixer-upper and document that progress. And then no one would let us we couldn't get a loan at all, like not even like, and then not even a little one, nothing. And so we rented for 4 or 5 years.
And when you say rented, you rented your parents' basement or an actual?
No, we did not do.
My roommates.
That would have really added to the stress. And we were designing, all these beautiful homes for other people and not taking any money home for ourselves, and always saying, well, I think that we should probably hire this other person before we pay ourselves. And it just kind of kept going and going and going. And then at 5 years, we're at 4 years, we started building our home. And you think that is like, for us, like just being able to like sit in our own home is like the greatest gift we've given to ourselves this far.
Well, I think, just to jump in there real quick, is giving yourself a home that fits the image that you create on social media and in your designs. That's like, this is my home. It's not a green screen. This is my house. It's unfinished and it's a mess.
I was
But
like
if you-
going really for that like builder backdrop. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing.
But like every day I struggle with the fact that, like I've told the story before, I grabbed a Wolf range from a job site. They were giving it up. They were putting something else in, and I was like, I'm gonna upgrade this. Give this to the missus. She's gonna love it. And we have that in the center of our island, like our kitchen, and it's got a moving blanket over it. And then someone came over that our designer is working with right now to drop the kids off, and they're in the kitchen. Came in the side entrance. I'm fixing a pipe underneath my sink that's broken, and they're then gonna hire me as the high-end builder. And I'm like, I don't fit this image.
Right.
And you get like, I don't know, with 2 million followers, if you ever get that, you're fighting off that imposter syndrome where it's like,
I mean, I think like even, well, for years it was like, hire me to design your multi-million-dollar home. And then, I'd come home and the furniture in our house was like the scratch and dent section of like things that got delivered and then
RH,
weren't good enough for, our clients. And then I'd take them. And, so we did not fit the picture perfect image in our home then, and life doesn't fit the picture perfect image now. But it is nice to live in a place that I feel like finally represents our style.
in your worth and your value. Like you bring this value to homes that aren't yours, and families get to make memories in them. But what about you? And I just struggle with it all the time. And I don't know, I guess to Tyler's point, like to understand your value. And I have two questions for that. But this one is like, did you internally between you guys go like, you know what, we're going to build our house in like 5 years. Well, if we keep up this pace, like, you put these internal goals, not with the company. Like that, I'll have a little bit more spare time if we hire these 3 more people to do this, this, and this, or Sid. And then how do you then understand internally that, hey, if we do these 5 things, it'll be worth it for the next year, and we can see that house in our future? Was that something that you told yourself or no?
Well, when we first moved here, we were told like we had to be in business for 2 years to get a loan, and it ended up being 5. So I think that really and Sid, I'm going to give you the credit, but also it was a hard thing for us. Like Sid is like, he thinks like really big and scale. And he kept it, of course, like at year 2, I was like on the date when I knew we could apply for a loan to like build a house. I was ready to reward ourselves for our hard work. And he was like, well, no, we still have to launch McGee & Co. And so it was like, well, we're going to take the money that we would have used as a down payment. We're going to launch that. We need to buy inventory and build a website. And then it was like, okay, well, that's going well. So we need to reinvest even more money. And so I think that was really hard for me, where he really understands sacrifices for like long-term gains, and I've had to be pulled along with that.
But I think it's a complementary dynamic, because if not, I mean, I'd be living in like what are those cool mobile home trailers? Like the
You'd be living in like a tiny house.
There aren't any.
What are the cool ones though? Like
An Airstream.
Yeah, I'd be living in an Airstream.
Airstream's dope. Yeah.
And putting everything back into the business still, because it's like, yeah, but I can just see the rate of return we can get on it. And so finally Shea was like, look, like we got to do this. Like, and thank goodness. I mean, like, dude, we were so stoked that we did that this year, because like with everything that happened and everyone spending so much time inside your house, like it really made it that much more valuable to us.
But I think like 2 huge lessons, like for me, I totally recognize and am grateful that like Sid pushed us to like make these sacrifices for bigger gains. But I also am really grateful that we could have taken the money for our house and reinvested that yet again. And I'm just grateful that we decided at 5 years that like we were going to reward ourselves.
And I saw it as a business investment as well. Like when she talks
of course,
about
you're going to look at it like that. Like let's just have it as a reward.
But it was true. I mean, like to be able to have our home and showcase product and have just, like that's what we do. Like as our business. So like, I don't know. We always were like, it's akin to someone that builds like custom cars. Like finally the guy's got to have like a sweet car, like, or else you're like, I don't know, like the guy drives a Honda Civic and restores like these.
That's how I feel right now.
Or like,
like every day of the week.
I think finally there'll come that time where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to do one, because it's another testament to your work and what you do. Right. So even you working on your home is like it'll be cool, like, you know, and it'll come around and that'll show people even more like what you do and how you care about what
But it's like setting that priority. Like you guys said, it's a struggle. Even at your worst or your best, it's a struggle. Like if you're struggling through a company, it's like, oh, that next job's going to be my opportunity, or the next one. And then it's just like every week I have an architect that we do our stuff with, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Have this done. Like even my cabinet company, I'm like, you know what? Finish the next 2 builds and then you can fit out the office. But it's every week I come home and I'm like, this week will be the priority. And then it's like, you know what? But the client, it's weird. We value the client first in so many levels.
No, he was making good.
That's a really good point, because I think you have to set solid milestones, like actionable points where you're going to do something. Because if not, like you would end up like, I would just end up continuing to put it on.
Well, I think a house is a really big example of that. But like Sid and I have like really learned, because we didn't do this at the beginning. We did nothing for ourselves. But like Sid's thing is like bikes. And so he, like at certain milestones, he will like be like, I'm going to get this bike when we, you know, launch the show, or, and I obviously have, you know, my things, jewelry, stuff like that. But I think that having those, for me, it just keeps it so that it doesn't feel like such an long haul.
If not, you just go on in this like purgatory of building forever, like nothing changes.
Thanks, guys.
Even if like even if your company's making $1 million or like $50 million and you still are like kind of doing the same thing, you're just like, I'm just floating. I'm just going to float for like 40 years. And
yeah, I feel like you need those little rewards in your life, and it's something to look forward to. I feel like that's even something with everything that's going on. I'm afraid for my children, because it's like normally in the summer you're looking forward to a vacation, or you know, they're going to go sleep at their cousin's house or their friend's house, and all those little small rewards now, they're not there anymore. Which is, I feel like it's tough, but you need them in life. You need them in business. If not, it's literally the same thing day in and day out. And it doesn't matter how much money you're making. It becomes like this vicious cycle.
Sid, looking at it as a business decision, do you feel as though you know, obviously starting 5 years ago with doing room after room, now doing your full house and being able to document it and showcase that you guys built a custom home, has that been a pivotal moment for clientele? Like, are you doing more homes now, or?
I don't think that our demand has changed, but the clients are finally asking for some of the things that I really wished that they would ask for. When I started, I'm not sure why it is, but all of our clients were very anti like vintage or old, and they wanted everything to be perfect and new. So I never won the marble quartz battle, or rarely. I had a really hard time convincing people to incorporate vintage furniture, and they're like, oh, that's like a grandma. And I'm like, yeah, grandmas are cool, you know, but they didn't get that. And it was like, everything needed to be shiny and new and modern. And that gave me a great start. But I personally really like things that have a little bit more character. I love clean design, but I like a little bit more of a mix. But when you're doing what the client wants, you do what the client wants. And so I think that in doing our own home, I have been able to kind of push my personal perspective a little bit more than I ever was. And then now clients come to us and they're like, well, I like how your house feels. I'd like you to do that. And so I love that clean traditional aesthetic that is more of my personal point of view will be further promoted in our upcoming projects that we're working on now that we've done our own home. I also I know that we couldn't have done it this way, but having done my own home now, I have a completely different perspective when selling my clients on things, and working with them, having patience and understanding for the revision process, and also just kind of knowing when to like step in and like help them really make decisions, or when to kind of let them kind of have to like feel their way through things a little bit.
I feel like empathy is the word I use, is like to really understand where they're at, and like, because come off the gas a little bit. You know, it's really tough to know when it is if you don't know. And I think I see that with my employees a lot, where it's like, well, I need this answer tomorrow. It's like,
totally.
All right, dude, take 4 more days. Like, it's like we talk about it in the podcast. Like, I don't send invoices on a Friday. Do I want an invoice on a Friday? Because guess what? No one wants to read it. And then I don't want to, have the rebuttal over the weekend. So let's send it on a Wednesday. So by Friday, we got it sorted out and everyone's paid. So it's like those little things that you bring into your normal life that you then, transfer into your business, which is key.
Yeah. I think, like 1000%. It's just like design and like revisions are a total pain in the butt. Total pain. As you know, I'm sure change orders are, so hard sometimes, but
I call them upgrades.
They're upgrades, yeah.
Because that's how I want to see it. It's like, well, I'm upgrading it.
But like, as someone who had quite a few of those, I now tried to tell my designers, like, so what? Like, I don't know. We'll just tell them it's going to take, like, it's going to be more hours like that. And like at a certain point when it's your home, you kind of are willing to pay for those more hours, because those additional hours, because you just want to get it right. And I think that at a certain point when you get to really high-end homes, like that's the experience. But we have moved so quickly that like our client set a couple of years ago is very different than our client set now. Mm-hmm. And so we used to have to be really concerned about the changes, because then people would get mad at us because it took additional time. And now really the goal is just like, let's get it right. But we had to work to elevate the budgets to the point where we could sift through that process.
But don't you feel, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna say that, being able to build your own home or renovate your own space, it's a proof of concept. And I think from a business standpoint, that's, where you would look at it, Sid, is here's an opportunity for Shea to, put everything she wants into a home and then promote it. And then on the return side, now we have clients that understand and respect it because they get to see it in the space. Mm-hmm. And it is something we talk about, even myself, my wife and I want to build another house and do it exactly the way we want, with the mindset of, let's do this to prove that it would be desirable in this area. And it has a proof of concept. John, I don't know if I'm...
Well, saying that you did it in your own house holds value. Like, it's like, oh, would you do that? I did it in my house.
Yeah.
Well,
I've done some shady stuff in my house that I feel like I wouldn't want to do to a customer's house.
Well, it's like,
it's
you talk about,
but
you talk about the marble versus quartz. It's like, well, did you do marble in your house? And it's like, well, no. It's like, then why are you selling me on it?
Right.
No, but like the conversation I have, like almost every time when we close out a project, there's new clients walking through that, because I like to buck the curve a little bit, and most people won't walk someone through a house that's closing out because it's a lot of stress, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm always like, no, swing by. And people get to see the client interacting with me at that pivotal stage where nerves and everything's hitting. And I remember sitting at the island just in the last project, and they're like, you did marble again, like, is that what you're seeing? And I just, without opinion, because I'm the builder, not the designer, is say, hey, I know there's printed stuff, I know there's manufactured stuff, and I thought those would drown out like most marbles. But it's like, people are like, I don't want to have the same exact piece of stone that person has. I want to go to the warehouse and specifically pick my own piece, my own slice of the earth, and have that in my house where it's my in particular thing. Where, going back to that vintage thing, yeah, you can buy a bunch of RH stuff, but like finding that one-off piece that no one else can find, no one else can replicate or even try, that has a ton of value. And the story behind those pieces, like, we find ourselves doing a lot of stone from Vermont, which is, a couple 100 miles away, but it's like, that's coming local from us. Like, if you wanted to go visit that quarry, you can't go to Italy. You wouldn't want to go to wherever manufacturer they make in whatever stone. This is cool. And having that story behind little pieces of the home is really what makes it special, I think, on my end. But that's why I named the company Vintage. So it's not a hard throw for me to figure out.
You had said earlier that when you guys moved from California to Salt Lake, that you were somewhat starry-eyed and wanted to change the industry, or for what you would be able to do with it. Obviously, you've had a big impact on the industry, but what specifically do you think that you're doing? Do you still kind of feel that way? That you want to do right by the industry and educate consumers and everyone else? What are you doing to make the industry, the design industry, construction industry, a better industry as a whole?
I think that I think our vision was that we would make principles of high-end design approachable, because what I learned very early on is that the principles that you apply in high-end homes can be distilled down to like any size of home, scale and proportion and mixing and layering. It goes on and on and on. Those same things that I'm doing in really, really, huge homes can be done in apartments. And so I think that we were also we felt like outsiders. We were outsiders. And we were using social media to build our business, which wasn't something that was being done in the industry. We were answering questions like, what is that paint color on the wall? We were doing things like that lifted a curtain that really had not been lifted before. Except for like maybe some magazines. I think Domino magazine back in the day was doing a really good job of making design approachable and fun. And so I think that was always our goal, was to make design feel livable, even if it was high-end design.
Yeah, I think that that's what's important, and you guys do very well. I think most people 10 years ago had this mindset where hiring a designer or having a home that a designer came through and worked for you, you couldn't live in the space. It wasn't functional. They were designing at such a high level, and it was stuffy and closed in and tight. And I think you guys have done a good job of bringing in design that's still livable for families, which I think there was a huge gap in the market for that with designers. And I think that people thought, we couldn't afford design, or everything that a designer would pick would be too expensive. I think you still get that pushback a lot now, but integrating design in a way that people can live in that home and it's not so stark that it doesn't feel like a home. You guys have done a great job of doing that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I want to go back a minute you guys used like the follower count as like how you got a little confidence in the business. But as that grew, how did you realize that, like, I always feel like we always find ourselves in a spot, we start building these homes, and then when you accomplish it, it may be 6 months to a year, that you've bid out a bunch of other products that now your value's gone up. Like, let's just say it's like 3 years ago, we started a business, our overhead and profit was 13%. And we brought in a few employees, blah, blah. 3 years later, we're at 18%. So yeah, you could see it in your follower count, but how did you stop and go, I need to be charging more. I need to be recognizing my value beyond social media to be able to put a little bit of money in the bank and pay for overhead and the office. And when I saw your show, it was like, and they scanned the office with all the Macs, I was like, what happened? Like, did I miss an entire century?
The secret is that, well, what are you going to say?
Yeah, tell them the secret. Go.
McGee & Co. is 95% of our business. Studio McGee is what we are known for, and it is where our followers are, and that is my voice. But design is not scalable, and it is not nearly as profitable as a business that is scalable. And so I realized maybe a couple of years ago that like what we thought was the way to grow a design business, which was like offices in different locations and this like adding lots of designers. It wasn't the right fit for me because I like to be involved in the projects. And so we just had to, there was points along the way, you have to realize you got to raise your rates. And if we're not going to go to the model of like having offices in LA and New York, in addition to where we are currently, then we always wanted to do product. Building a brand was always number one. That was always our goal. And so we really just leaned in to McGee & Co. because that was a way for me to like not have to be at every checkpoint along the way. And that has been Sid's, really where he has like the design side of things has always been like my focus, but like for him, scalability and operations is where he like thrives. And so wouldn't you say that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think now we probably still charge less than we should on the design services side, but I think we kind of see it as a collective whole of like what our brand is. And so we have the interior design piece, which is really working with those clients on those cool large homes. And then that's showcasing and keep, what we can do as a design team, that we know what we're doing, that we're staying in the loop with like product and everything that's available out there. And that really lends itself to, having the credibility when we sell product. Like we know what's out there. Here's the best stuff that's out there. If it's not around, like we built it, we made it, and we've sourced it for you. And then that works with like what we do from a perspective of also doing media, like our book and TV show and, partnerships like with Target and stuff. Like it's all just one big thing. So we may make, have higher profit margins in different areas, but all in all, like net, it works out. But it is hard. I mean, I think you always feel like I should probably raise your rates, but I think also in the long extended timelines of the nature of what we do with building and designing is like, you gotta be happy with that rate for that client for a year and a half,
Do you think it's crazy that like when it's product, you feel more comfortable putting whatever value you can, it's kind of whatever, it's $45, it's $50. But when it's a person and it's your style and inside your brain, it's tough to put the number on it. Like because
it's also subjective to the person that you're working with too. Sometimes they can be like, well, they're not going to like email you and say, yeah, I mean, you're selling that piece of artwork for like $900. Like, I think it's only worth like 800, like, or right. I think your bid's too high. Like, so I'm just going to go with someone else. Like, it's just like weird. Cause I think that when it comes down to professional services, like it is more of like what that value is. And I think you have to convey that and help them understand how, I think we tried to like put it together one time. It was like, I think it was like 2,800 decisions that you make during like a build, roughly like something. It was like crazy, it was like, and we're like, so we try to help you feel good throughout that process, of making those decisions and building your home. And I don't know, I think just helping establish what that value looks like.
So people will always have a harder time paying for services than something that they can like touch and feel.
Right.
And so I think that, I think it's just something that we had to like realize was part of the business. It's like people are always going to give you a hard time about your rates, even if I think we probably, not probably, I know that we probably, not probably, I keep saying probably, we are like, we could be charging hard. We could be charging
we can
much higher
edit this out.
I cannot get that out because even now I feel nervous, like justifying our rates. It's hard for me. And at a certain point, I just had to like say like, I don't want to be involved in those decisions. If you guys feel like we need to raise our rates, then let's raise our rates and then deal with it. I think we have like a 3-prong approach to taking on clients, and it's budget, the actual architecture, and then it's also personality. And so personality for me is almost just as important, if not more important than the other two sometimes.
So
because
true.
You're in this long-term relationship. And so I
to the point where it's like, we're making like $500,000 off that. yeah, I don't care. Like, this is terrible.
They're terrible. Like, I don't care. I don't want to work
I
with
won't
them.
ever work.
I want to get
again.
divorced right now because it is that type of relationship.
So I think that we have those 3 requirements, and then we take our rates, and we don't want to raise them to the point where we don't get an option of who we work with.
So what were the 3 you said? Like budget for the project,
Then the actual architecture of the home,
yeah.
and then
Personality.
yeah.
I mean, budget's a business is relative to business. I feel like personality, it just well-being of whoever's on that team working with that customer. It doesn't matter if you knock the project out of the park. If it was a terrible experience and you weren't happy with it, it's a lose for you. It's not a good project for you. It's not your best work.
Right.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I feel like I fall in love with these clients and their budget sucks. So then I try and squeeze every piece out of it, where then the experience sucks. So there's this nightmare of like, oh, they're super cute. They have a young family. They're going to go
Have you ever
out.
thought about starting a product line for vintage?
Listen to this going.
I just like get worried. I'm like, did Johnny end up dating a bunch of crazy girls because he saw like he could fall in love with them? He saw the shit. He's like, I
I'm
know
a
she's
psycho.
a little crazy, but she could be cool, man.
She could be cool. Like,
I could
but then
fix her.
But then you get to the point where who do they go to? We talk about this all the time on the podcast. What are their options? So if I walk in that house and it's a young, like we're doing a project in Sudbury. We talked about this the other day, boys. It's like their budget's tight. And I sat down with my partner, Benny, and I'm like, these are the people I want to work for. They have 3 girls. They walk in the back door. They dump all their stuff in front of the stove. Like, that's where their drop zone is. And it's just like, you guys shouldn't live like this. They have a chantry. They have a bathroom off the kitchen, and you walk in, and since they didn't have any pantry space, they put a fiberglass shower that was there. They put in like actual food. So you pull back the curtain, and it's their food. And then they pull it back, and I'm like, how do you say to them? I said to them, I go, the budget's super tight for us. I go, so the way I kind of navigate it was like, we'll do the design for you guys. We'll bring in the architect. We'll dial it in so that way you have something that's strong that can then be bid to anybody. Because a lot of people then think they can just go about the construction and the bidding out, where it's like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this. And then it's up to 5 different people's opinion of what they saw and what they think should be included. And that's in the price. So, I mean, architecture is absolutely huge when you get to a point. But when you guys started, it was more like, hey, I'm going to go in the neighbor's house and I'll do these 2 rooms. And then it kind of evolved, but it's taking the small chances and making them super valuable.
It's hard because
We put a lot of sweat equity into those early projects.
I was definitely like you, where like really I couldn't say no because I would just be like, oh, they're so cool. Like,
right?
we
Then
can
he
help
wasn't
them.
stuck with them.
I'm like, oh, they're so cool. Like, these guys are awesome. Like, I know, I get it, but we could hook them up, you know? And so I finally just had to be like, okay, like, dude, you're a softie. Like, I set the criteria, the business rules, and then like hired someone to like oversee the design team and say like, look, you're gonna have to talk to clients. If they meet this criteria and we can kind of like feel like they're cool, let's have them talk to the designers, then we'll take them on. And they were able to be like, okay, cool. Like, this one doesn't work, this one doesn't work. But like, we can like send them resources. We can guide them to where they can go to like get something in their house, but we just can't do our full service for them because it won't work.
I also think that there's something to be said for the fact that we learned that it's better to hone in on what you're focusing on instead of spread yourself thin. So like if someone comes to us and they're like, this is my budget, and it's not enough for all of the rooms that they're talking about, we are very firm. We've learned to be very firm in saying, well, we can do your kitchen and your dining room for that much, not your kitchen, dining room, living room, and entryway for that much. And it doesn't, I'm not going to water down what we do. Happy to work together, but this is what we can do for that budget. And I think that was a trial and error.
Well, it comes with confidence. It's being able to see it where you walk in. I think I'm speaking for myself, but having a decent presence on social media, I find that a lot of clients come to us and go, all right, I have this amount of money. Here's my bag of money. Can you tell me out of my list what I can do?
Like, what can I get for that?
Yeah, and it's super helpful because it's usually been the other way for a long, long time, for most of my career, that it's, I have this, I'm going to be cagey about how much money I have, and I'm going to try and get everything I can out of it. And then you're right. Then you dilute the actual finished product. And I think going back to what we were saying before is you might manage selections, but overall we're managing regret. Is that when you get in here, it's trying to, like I tell my clients, I'm not staring at you. It's not weird. It's just, you're going to not tell me things. You're going to walk into a room, stand at one spot and stare at something. I'm not going to ask you then. I'm going to go stand in that exact same spot and look to figure out what it is that you're playing with in your head, because I'm trying to manage that aspect of when you walk in and you have that regret and they just don't want to voice it, because most people only do 1 or 2 builds a lifetime. We do it every day, and sometimes it's going to be taken for granted.
True.
Going back to the, and we're respective of your time. We know you have a hard stop in about 5 minutes here, but going back to, when did you guys make the decision for the product line?
We wanted to do it first thing. That was like that was our original goal, was that we would start with doing a product line out of the gates. Sid's background with digital marketing, we felt like we could use that and build a brand. And then we would simultaneously do design. We went to market, like no one would let us sell their products. Or like, oh, you're going to have like an online store? Cool. Yeah. Well, we're not going to let you sell. Like they did not want to work with us. And so we were totally defeated. But instead of let that get us down, we were like, fine, we'll show you. So we just leaned into design services we saw that as an opportunity to make a name for ourselves and like build our Instagram following to the point where they couldn't say no. That was kind of what we thought. And so that's what we did, was we just took on everything and documented the process and really focused on building our following on, Pinterest and our blog and Instagram. And so a couple of years later, when we felt like it was time, we were ready, then we went back, and we still got so much pushback, but we had a couple of vendors that said yes. And so we felt like we could do it. So,
we took what we could get and ran with it.
Yeah. But it was not an easy, and that side of things, like, yes, it's scalable, but it has its own beast.
It's a beast, dude.
Fulfillment, shipping furniture is, that's a lot of headache.
Yeah, that's what my wife does for URBN Anthropology, dealing with like sourcing and all the vendors and getting samples and all of that stuff made. And I'm like, I don't know how you do this day in and day out. Like, that's an entire beast in business in and of itself.
Yep. And you're
crazy.
thinking 12 to 18 months in advance. And so you're trying to predict trends that far in advance. And, the Chinese New Year takes up several, like almost the first full quarter. So you have to plan around that, and everything has to come by container. And, there is so much to it. But
lots of fun little things you learn. Like someone was like, hey, they're not going on strike this year like they do every year. And it was like, so that's great. And he was like, what? And he's like, yeah, like the dock workers. And I was like, oh, great. Like, that's awesome.
So we were just like learning.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Lucked out this year.
Didn't even know to be happy about that, but now I'm super stoked. Yeah.
And they're on the opposite clock as us as well.
Yeah.
So you have some fun times to have meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I do want to ask, did you end up getting your half pipe in the basement?
Yeah, it's on its way.
It's under construction currently. So
I've been saying that my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. So we honestly, so your backdrop looks like our basement, and our house most days, because we cannot keep the dust out of our house. And so it's just like, there's workers, we can hear they are like partying down there all day long.
We were laughing because we were sitting down to do the podcast with you guys. We turn on our screen, and then there's
it's just like someone's hammering right above, right below
goes on, and then a saw blade, and then Latino music bumping, and we're like, yeah, I like this one. This one's good.
This one's good.
Yeah. So we're like, it's a party.
They're probably done with it and just
they're probably just skating down there.
They're just skating down there.
They're done. He's like, turn on the compressor real quickly. Make it sound like we're doing work.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I watched the show and I was like, it showed your rental, but you guys didn't say it was a rental. And I was like, oh, I'm not so far off. And then the next 2 scenes later, you're like, there's the drone that flies in. It's like, and here's the house we're building. And I'm like, oh. just melted
Yeah,
away
like
in my couch.
the producers were like, we got to get you out of here fast in the season. Like they didn't want us like being shown in that house for very long. And so they were like, we had to really work around it. Like that was partly why we moved in while the house was still under construction.
Because of the show.
Yeah, we lived in like this little loft space up here. We had like mattresses on the floor, and they were like painting and doing lacquer, and we were like, pretty sure we're getting high up here.
You should have got an Airstream.
I know we should have gotten the Airstream.
But bro, we were on a budget still. Like, even though we were getting into
All
our
right,
house, we were still
that's a
on
business
budget.
expense. It's like the bikes, like the bicycles, the business expense. It's a write-off.
Well, Sid and Shea, we know you have a hard stop at 4:30 over there, so we appreciate you being on.
We got tumbling
Thanks. I don't want
classes.
kids
to take
left on the
kids to
sidewalk.
Oh, that's an amazing hard stop. I
That's
figured it was
awesome.
like another like podcast right behind, but tumbling's
No.
way better.
No,
Family time calls.
just children.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
for having us.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was awesome talking to you.
We
care,
appreciate
guys.
it. Nice
Take
to
care.
meet you.
Good to meet you.
They're awesome.
I mean, that's such a good dynamic to have, is like complete opposites, and have, Sid where he's business oriented and reinvesting, but having someone like Shea where it's like, all right, going along with it, but also saying, remember, we need our personal goals fulfilled too.
I love the fact that they debated on being together, but watching them, even in that interview, like just not even answer, but look at each other before they answered certain things was adorable. Like, I had a question here. It's like, looking back now, do you think you could have built what you built without each other?
Right. I mean, it doesn't sound
I'll
like
hold
it.
on to that one for next time.
Next time. Yeah. I was hoping
Yeah.
the half pipe was done.
That
I
makes
don't
me
know
feel-
why. I just want to see it. He's like, oh yeah, we're putting a half pipe in the basement. I'm like, what? But I think in the show you can see it. There's like a depression. Like I think they're doing like a rock climbing wall or something like that.
We're doing two of those right now in our house.
Really?
Yeah. Well, one of the kids that we're doing a loft for, we built it so he has like a little hatch, and he can crawl up the wall, get into his loft, and like the hatch, and then crawl over that way. And then the garage, we have an auto belay for him.
Oh, what?
Damn.
Like an auto. So if you don't want to fall, like the
Belay
garage,
on.
belay on, yeah. So it's like an auto belay, so we can go up and it will basically pull the
auto
slack.
belay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mumble.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Guys, sorry, go ahead.
Till it fails.
The belay.
Well, the funny thing is like when you talk to everyone, it's like, so do you want a belay? They're like, oh no, we're good. I'm like, you're gonna have friends that come over, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's more the liability insurance of like if someone falls and breaks an arm in the garage.
We're 2 reviews away from 800.
Oh, I can't believe we're almost at 150 episodes.
That's crazy.
So exciting. Take a nap.
150 episodes.
Burn out.
So casual.
But I had a few people chime in. John from Inside Out Customs. He's a local guy. Works on interiors, car interiors. Mocket Family, amazing podcast. Matt J, great podcast. And Ryan 1991, great. All good feedback.
Great
two rating.
was it? Great was his.
Well, I'm reading actually the titles. I'm not reading the long.
Oh, so just everyone's giving us one word answers.
Yeah, there's a few.
Hey, listen, I'll take it.
long ones.
Yeah. Oh, there's some long ones. Yeah, definitely long ones.
I'll read
Wow. Holy cow.
right.
The great podcast
Yo, check
one
it out.
from
Check it
Matt.
out. Look, I forgot that I had the Christmas cards on
my
my
gosh.
table. Malkeen.
Malkeen.
Oh wait. Oh yeah. It's audio, so nobody can see his address. That's the mansion. It's the Malkeen mansion.
Yeah, great podcast is a long one.
Yeah, it is. And we got a bunch of feedback on the survey, so keep that coming as well. I think we're at like 90 or 87.
And next week we have Carpenter 1 on. Frank Packy? Frank Pack?
Yeah.
Not bonus Frank.
Packy?
Not bonus, Frank.
Bonus Frank wants to come back on for a legit episode.
Does
Oh, we
he?
gotta follow up, right?
Did he sign up?
He bailed on that project, just to be clear.
Did he?
Yeah, I talked to him like a couple weeks in a row.
Freaking
Well,
bonus.
we
Frank.
gotta unload that story.
He Put
Hi,
a
guys.
freaking car on there. Oh my god.
You talking about
Wrong with
Malkeen?
him. Yeah.
It's a Bronco, right?
And then he has a license plate that says ho ho ho.
Yeah, I'd put the Bronco on too if I had one.
Nice. Well, you could put
Straight
the
up.
F100.
Yeah.
On that note, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. No lead time issues or no price increases. How many products can you say that about in this crazy year? The folks at Duration know and understand the availability of product is more important than ever for builders and remodelers. That's why they maintain deep inventories of standard products, produce semi-custom products in less than a week, and fabricate completely custom product in just 2 weeks. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. We'll see you guys next week.